What is up, runners? It's been about a week since Marathon came out, and now that we are getting past the opening engagements and the opening of the season, I think now a lot of you have your feet wet and have a better idea of what you're expecting game to game. We did do a video where we talked about what your expectations should be going into it, how your survival rate is going to be low, and how it's going to be a very brutal and hard experience in that first opening segment of the game. Now that we're past the first week, people have leveled up, they've unlocked new things, we've acquired gear, stockpiled gear, and already started going in and are dying with that gear and giving it to other players who have had less time to play. So naturally, as the game goes on, you're going to start seeing the resources that you have get bigger and bigger, and it's time to start thinking about surviving more. Obviously, the long-term goal and your skill is going to always be getting better. You want to be surviving more. You want to get better so you can survive more often. It's part of the game, and it's what you want to do. So from me personally, I have not done a ton of solo v solo in this game. I've played a couple of games of that. Mostly I'm playing trios with a little bit of Rook and solos on the side. In Tarkov, I have a tradition of playing mostly solo with some duos or trios. Tarkov does not have matchmaking based on party size, though, so any solo can play with any 5-stack, and there's nothing holding that back. In Hunt, I mostly play duos into trios and duos versus duos, and I have had experience playing, a bunch of other shooters. So in Tarkov specifically, because it tracks this data, as of this 1.0 wipe, which I haven't played much of because I've been preparing for Marathon's launch the entire time that it's been out, I have a 61% survival rate overall, which I think is a great place to be. Like, it's a really good survival rate. And for most players, you're going to feel pretty good with a survival rate that high. I'm not sure what my survival rate is in Marathon. They don't really track that or tell you what it is. And I'm not going game by game to find it out on my own. But if you want to get closer to this coveted 50-50 or better survival rate, I'm going to tell you the 3 main styles of play that I think can dictate surviving a gunfight, and thereby give you more chances of surviving, as well as a few miscellaneous tips at the end. So these 3 core playstyles, I think, are hand-in-hand things that you should be learning, and we kind of already started doing in the last video with the expectations of you're going to die very often, you might as well start rushing around and just fighting people. We're going to move on and talk about the second one and the third one as well in this video that I recommend learning to do and incorporating into your playstyle. You're not going to be doing all of these at once out the gate. It's going to take some time to learn how to use these, but you are going to eventually want to be able to switch between them depending on the situation. So these 3 methods are be faster, be methodical, or be better. Each of these plays a pivotal role in survival, and depending on the situation, one of these will usually be better than the others. Your long-term goal should be to master all 3 styles and learn when to switch between them. So let's go ahead and talk about being faster. In the grand scheme of the game, it's difficult to be faster than another team. Most groups move around the map at roughly the same speed regardless of the upgrades that you have. Sure, a high-level player might have more heat and move slightly faster, but overall, people tend to reach locations around the same time. What this generally means is that most of the time, if you're going to a central location like Algae Ponds or the Pinwheel, most people are going to be getting there at the same time and always get into the same fights, no matter what their level is, where you spawned, or anything else. However, if you learn to avoid, bypass, or otherwise blitz the AI, it becomes almost impossible for someone to at least catch you from behind. This is actually a very common playstyle in Hunt Showdown. A lot of long playtime players will pop infinite stamina shots and run past all the enemies, making as much noise as they need to while racing to the boss. Since everyone moves at roughly the same speed, even if you are making a ton of noise and everybody knows where you are, when you're running at full speed, it's nearly impossible for someone to catch up to you. They can maybe head you off if they spawned closer to the boss than you did, but they're not going to be able to come from behind, which means that as the faster player, you only have to be looking ahead of you. While other players are stopping to fight AI or they're getting stuck in long, drawn-out fights doing events, you can reach key locations first. And when you get there first, that will allow you to set up a defense, choose the angles and the fights that you want to take, and it forces the other teams to push into your position. It will also let you start third-partying fights more often. If you hear a team fighting several compounds away and you're moving fast enough, you can get there before the fight's actually over. That means you get to fight people who are already shooting at each other and injured, instead of a team that already killed, healed, and looted this first team. You can also look at it as recognizing when in a gunfight, it's really important to take speed and take an advantage as fast as possible. There are moments where somebody's going to heal around the corner, and you need to know that now is the time for you to push and just swing, even if you're low on health. If you are faster than the other player is at popping their heal, you're going to kill them because they're not going to be able to shoot back at you. Finally, being fast means not lingering in places unnecessarily. Sometimes you will need to wait for cooldowns or for the right moment to move, but you never want to be sitting around for no reason. The longer that you stay in one spot, the more likely it is that someone's going to stumble across you. You want to always be looking for the next move. Being methodical, on the other hand, is almost the opposite of playing fast. It's about taking your time and making sure everything is safe. When you're entering a location and you can't see what's inside beforehand, you should always be clearing your corners and deliberately choosing to expose yourself. The goal isn't just to be slower, it's to make deliberate, conscious decisions. If every time you get to a doorway, you're just walking through and looking straight ahead, you aren't being methodical. Being methodical would be clearing the angles where you expect somebody to be, looking at the high ground as you peek a corner, and then as you move further around the doorway, you start to look further and further into the room. Ideally, you don't want to be looking at a spot where a player can't be, and you want to know that wherever you're looking, there isn't somebody there. When you're entering all these dangerous areas, sprinting around and pulling out your knife puts you at a higher risk. Instead, you want to keep your gun out, pre-aim corners, and watch common hiding spots before you get into a room. Moving slowly like this should let you hear more sounds as you are producing less yourself. This sound awareness is incredibly important. You want to learn the audio cues for reloading, healing, people fighting at a distance, the difference between AI footsteps and player footsteps, the AI becoming aggravated as an enemy walks nearby them, players opening containers and looting. These small details tell you what's happening around you and help you minimize your own noise. If you're spending several minutes fighting AI with loud gunfire, you should fully expect another team to come investigate you. But if you quietly clear out enemies with a knife, other players will usually be drawn toward louder fights instead, which by proxy will just make your run safer in general. Being methodical can also mean using your utility properly and with good thoughts. Things like your meds, your grenades, your claymores, things like your cardio kicks, your mechanic kits, and your OS reboots. If you don't know how to appropriately use these things, learning them is a part of becoming methodical. For example, you can use claymores to cover your back while you're pushing ahead. If you're not able to fully clear an area, you can at least cut off the area that you haven't cleared with a claymore. If you know you need to quickly clear a corner or a small room, then being able to remember that you brought grenades and to throw your grenades in the room to let the grenade clear for you is a skill you want to learn. Finally, our third main method is be better. And it's very simple. It's be the better player. Thanks to the low time to kill in this game, skill absolutely matters, but planning does as well. If you play a situation better than your opponent, you are more likely to survive. This also means that better gear also helps. Spending more money and bringing stronger equipment like self-revives, blue heals, and larger shields are going to naturally increase your survival rate as long as you're playing somewhat competently. In solo versus solo, there are no late spawns, and this means that one viable strategy is to hunt players first, clear the lobby, then complete your quest. You aren't always going to eliminate everyone. Some people are avoiding PvP, but you can absolutely make the map safe enough to finish your objectives. When you have the opportunity, you want to be looking for ambushes you can set up, ways to catch people off guard, and how to get behind other players. As soon as you find yourself being able to take the first shot, you are going to be seeing yourself survive a lot more fights. But being better also means predicting how other players are going to think. For example, a shotgun player running around a corner is going to hope that you run around the same corner. So in that instance, you want to keep your distance. A sniper player wants you to keep the space in between you so they can keep taking shots at you. So closing the gap puts them at the disadvantage. An aggressive player who pushes very strongly does not want to walk into a claymore. So obviously, Putting things like claymores and other traps in their way is going to, one, slow them down and also cause them to walk into a lot of that damage while they're focused on trying to get to you. You only need to be better than that person for the few seconds it takes for your fight to end. You don't have to be better the entire match. You just have to outplay the person in front of you. A lot of this skill in being better comes from experience and learning to read the situation that you're in. You're not going to at first pick up on all these small things other people are doing when they're trying to play safe because they have good gear, when they are playing aggressively because they brought in free kits. That is stuff that you learn by seeing it happen over and over again. You are going to die learning the first two methods, and over that time, you're going to slowly learn what it means to be a different player. In my opinion, the way you want to look at it is you want to be the other player's worst nightmare. And you're not going to know what the other person's worst nightmare is if you've never been in their shoes. If you are enjoying these tips and you want to see some more marathon content, go ahead and like the video down below. Leave a comment telling me how your survival is going. And go ahead and subscribe down below so you can see the newest videos coming out. So how would I recommend you learn these things? Well, I already have them kind of in order that I would recommend learning them. If you're going to learn each one at a time, start with being fast. Playing fast removes the mental hesitation that stops a lot of players from improving. Fear is not something you want to be dealing with while you're learning to be methodical. You don't want to always be afraid that running is always bad, or pushing a fight is always bad, or that dying is always bad. Because death is going to happen regardless. It's much easier to slow down later than it is to play slow and try to learn to speed up, because you're going to be hesitating a lot more. The worst thing that you can do is be indecisive. So once you're comfortable navigating quickly, moving around a lot, and being very aggressive in a fight, you're going to start recognizing where being aggressive isn't good. That's when you want to start focusing, turning your brain on, and making sure you are starting to be methodical. For example, when you're sprinting around, you make it down towards Holler and you notice the doors are open. Now, you know that likely means there are players inside. And most of the time when you sprint straight through Holler and there are players there, that you just die more often than not. Now you want to go ahead and switch modes and start thinking about how you can be methodical here. Slow down, reduce how much noise you're making, listen carefully to try to find out where the other players are and what they're doing, and as you enter, methodically clear the corners to see if you can catch them looting or looking the other direction or fighting bots. This will teach you where players are hiding, what weapons they're using and how they're using them, the range that they're playing, the sounds that they make, and what it sounds like when they're healing, when they're reloading, when they're stomping around, when they're trying to slide through vents, etc. After that, once you have mastered methodically clearing the area, moving slow and moving fast, now you can focus on being better than everyone else. Start bringing in your stronger gear, take more fights to start pushing the bounds of your skill. Learn the time to kill of the weapons that you're using. Learn how much range that they have and how aggressive you can be or how defensive you can be with different weapons. The hardline, for example, is great at playing defensively and not so much at playing aggressively. But when you have a hardline, that will give you a wide range band where you can fight people who are using bullies and sidearms and SMGs and some assault rifles where they can't reach you normally. And you're going to learn when you want to be fighting in this compound with this weapon, or you'd rather be working in between the maps with the weapon that you have. And of course, you're going to start learning how to do ambushes. Now, remember, this list is subjective. This is the way that I see the game and the way that works best for me. You might not necessarily be someone who plays fast until it's time to slow down. Maybe you play slower until it's time to speed up. And if that is the case, take the time to think about this and recognize where you want to start. Everything is going to work kind of in the same manner where you're going to learn one of these things and then the next and then the final one. And you're going to slowly get better and better and start wanting to bring in better and better gear. That is totally fine. And part of this is a process that you have to go through. And you can cherry pick specific bits and bobs out of each one of these and maybe learn them one at a time if you want that way. It's going to all help you. It's just a matter of I'm trying to give you the entire big list up front. So let's move on to some general survival tips. These aren't going to be tied to a specific playstyle. They are just habits to help you to survive more often. First off, reduce your noise. Methodically, you want to, of course, be moving through compounds kind of quietly, but overall, the entire game, you want to be reducing how much noise you make. Gunshots travel very far, and sprinting is loud. Players are often going to know where you are the moment you start making noise, because it is so distinct from the sounds AI make. That's why using your knife on AI instead of shooting them is very important. You also want to be learning when you should walk instead of sprinting. Even if you have your knife out, walking makes much less noise than sprinting. Just remember that sound is one of the most powerful mechanics in the game. You can only see what's on your screen, but sound gives you 360-degree awareness. It travels through walls and provides constant information that vision alone can't provide you. It's twofold that you aren't going to be making noise that other players can use against you, and you're going to be paying attention to the noise that they make. Next, don't be afraid to lose gear. Always be calculating, never afraid. If you enter a match terrified of dying or losing the gear that you brought, you're going to make bad decisions. Instead, evaluate each situation. How much gear do you have? What did you bring? How much ammo and healing do you have left? Do you have valuables that you really want to make it out with? When you're fully stacked, sometimes it's smarter to just extract safely before you do the quest, before you take another fight. But if you entered with a free kit and you haven't looted anything yet, maybe it's worth taking a fight that's normally bad just to try and get some gear out of it. Whatever decision you end up making, though, commit to it. You don't want to hesitate halfway through, because that indecision after you half commit is what's going to get you killed more often than not. If you make the noise as you're going to push aggressively and players know that you're there, and halfway through you decide that now you're going to stop making noise, they already know where you are, and you have now given them the opportunity to be prepared for you to push them, for example. Or if you're being methodical and you're being slow, and you see a guy far away and you get hasty and you start taking shots before you're in range of your weapons, trying to be fast when you shouldn't, now you're going to give them the opportunity to get away. Next up, don't be greedy. Greed takes a lot of forms. I think by now most players understand that they don't have to loot every single container they see, but greed can also mean looting a body out in the open. Just because you killed someone doesn't mean another player isn't watching the body waiting for you to loot them. Clear the area first before you loot bodies, or sometimes just leave the loot behind. If you know the guy was on a free kit from a distance, maybe whatever he picked up isn't worth risking your life for. Greed also applies to things like time. Spending too long clearing a location might make you run out of time to finish the objectives that you have to do in a single run. Everything you do costs you either time or resources. At the same time, don't be stingy either. If you brought items to counter things like hazards, use them. That's what they're for. If you brought 5 hazard kits, just run through the poison plants, because you already brought the counter to poison specifically in case you got poisoned. Finally, always remember that every match is contextual. Every situation is going to be unique. Even if similar scenarios appear repeatedly, the details are always going to be different. There's going to be different players who have different weapons with different AI nearby, and someone's going to be on a different angle with different equipment. Just because aggression worked once doesn't mean it's going to work again. And dying while playing slowly doesn't mean that that method was wrong. Being adaptable is a skill that you develop through experience. And you have to remember that there's no single solution to every situation. You're going to have to slowly learn and adapt and become a better player. And sometimes never forget that the worst thing that can happen to the enemy player is that you ran away. Running away is always an option. It's not the bravest or the most flashy, but sometimes when you're trying to survive and you need to make it out, just leaving the fight is far more reliable than beating the other guy, or beating a purple AI or even some blue AI sometimes. You don't have to fight every enemy you come across. You don't have to kill every enemy. If it seems like it's a bad time, dip. Cut your losses, use the heals that you need to use, and find a different route. There might always be something else that you can do, but rarely is running away purely the wrong answer. So there you go. After several thousand hours of playing extraction shooters, these are the kind of tips and play styles that I've adapted and things that I think about regularly to survive more games. Now, for me personally, I've probably internalized a lot of these things, and I know when I can break these rules. But when you're getting started, when you're trying to learn, you want things to focus on and things to improve on. So this is the things that I would improve on in the order that I see them. You know, when you're playing fast, maybe you want to take cheaper kits that you can burn through repeatedly and not really worry about what you're burning through, because once you've mastered that play style, you're then going to be able to start taking things more seriously. You're going to see your survival rate start going up, and being methodical will now allow you to bring a lot of good utility, and learning to use that utility is going to be a great part of your playstyle. And by the time you get around to being better, you are going to have so much more experience in being aggressive and being slow that you're going to be able to start making these really complex decisions about what the other people are using, where they're playing, and what they probably don't want to happen. Just remember, if you're playing teams, playing together is probably the most important thing that you can do. Pushing one guy with 3 people, even if it seems like the wrong decision, is usually better and more likely to get you a win than trying to do the right thing on your own. Trios is a team game. And if you're playing solo v solos, it's a very harsh world out there. If you're playing a free kit and people are geared, sometimes being the rat is the answer. And that is just the way that it is to play solos. If you want to be the bigger man and take in the expensive loadouts and go fight people, go ahead. You can be my guest. But there's always the chance that somebody who is a rat is going to catch you slacking. And that is something that you have to be aware of and okay with. Because at some point, you're going to catch somebody slacking. That's kind of how you push solos. That's just the way it is. If you want to survive, you want to make it work, learn when to cut your losses, learn when to not fight an easy blue AI just because you can extract a little bit sooner. And don't be afraid to extract early either. If you have a pretty decent run and you're on like a free kit, sometimes it's worth taking out the 2,000-3,000 credits instead of trying to push your quest and dying. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I will see you all again very, very soon.